Let's start with the most direct question. What exactly is going on in occupied Luhansk? In Luhansk, there was a real coup organized by security agents. The situation was quite stable for 3 years, but after Plotnitsky came to power, it changed quite drastically. Moreover, this military coup developed practically like any junta's rise to power. There was a military seizure of power. People from different forces armed with guns came to the streets, seized the administrative buildings, and seized military installations. They kicked out their rivals, kicked out the leader of the so-called LPR, practically ejected him from Luhansk. All of this gave Moscow an easy choice between two options. Either Plotnitsky leaves completely, or his power will serve solely a nominal presentational function. As we can see, Moscow went for the first option. De facto, Plotnitsky doesn't govern the area anymore. He is only valued for the signatures he previously wrote on the Minsk agreements. People in Luhansk say that these signatures are practically what saved his life. How did the conflict between Plotnitsky and the self-proclaimed interior minister Igor Plotnitsky start? This conflict started in 2015. It wasn't just with Kornet, but also with the so-called LPR state security minister, Leonid Pasechnik. 2 years ago, Pasechnik and Kornet arrested the so-called minister of the coal industry, Dmitry Lyamin. They accused Lyamin of corruption, of arranging shadow schemes with various Ukrainian oligarchs. But Plotnitsky claimed that Pasechnik and Kornet had no rights to detain the minister without his permission. Pasechnik and Kornet refused to free him, and even back then, 2 years ago, this situation could have escalated into an armed standoff like we have now. But it didn't. Everyone remained in their jobs. Pasechnik and Kornet retained their roles, and Plotnitsky continued to be the head of the LPR. But even then, it became clear that the so-called leadership of the LPR and the DPR, because the DPR has the same situation, they have no control over parts of the security agencies that are located in their territory. Rumors started spreading that the political system and the security system of the occupied parts of the Donbas region are controlled by different curators in Moscow. We then realized that Vladislav Surkov controls the political part mostly, that being Plotnitsky, Zakharchenko, and their subordinates. And the LPR security services obey the relevant security agencies in the Russian Federation. And that's exactly what led to the political crisis we're currently witnessing in Luhansk. This status quo, or maybe even Moscow's fear to transfer the entire power, the control over the armed groups and illegal structures, to one person who is considered the head of the DPR or LPR. Such desire to put eggs in different baskets probably played a dirty trick on them. Yesterday we found out that Plotnitsky resigned. Now he's eager to come back to the LPR as an envoy for the Minsk agreements. What does this mean for Minsk, and what does this mean for the future of the separatist movement in Luhansk? First of all, we know for sure that Plotnitsky did not want to resign. And that's a very important thing. We don't have a video address of him saying that he's resigning. Virtually 2 days ago at a press conference, he said that everything that's going on in Luhansk is an attempt at a political coup. So de facto, we have coup organizers appointing themselves as the new leadership of the LPR on Plotnitsky's behalf. That's the first point. It's difficult to judge whether we can trust their words when they say that Plotnitsky will come back to Luhansk as the signatory to the Minsk agreements and as the future envoy of the so-called LPR in Minsk. We only know this from their words. In any case, we need to have some sort of reaction in Ukraine as the other side of the process. In any case, we need to have some kind of reaction in Ukraine because it's the other side of this process. There also needs to be an official reaction from Russia, which also plays a role in the process, and a reaction from the OSCE. I think that the Luhansk events will slow down the Minsk process for some time, to say the least. That said, it's been slowed down for quite a while now. But the normal development of the Minsk agreement, the execution of the Minsk agreements will become even harder. Let me give you a simple example. For over a year, we had no official exchanges of prisoners on both sides of the demarcation line. Only just recently, we started hearing statements about potential exchanges in the nearest future. Putin even met with Viktor Medvedchuk, who is one of Ukraine's representatives who deals with prisoner exchanges. Putin even met with Viktor Medvedchuk, who is one of Ukraine's representatives who deals with prisoner exchanges. Putin rang Zakharchenko and Plotnitsky. He asked them to hurry up with forming the lists, hurry up with the exchange process. Now we have one of the people who used to talk to Putin over the phone being no longer active. He's been ousted. Hence, that's why this process is likely to stall. The new head of the LPR is now Leonid Pasechnik, the so-called former head of the Luhansk Ministry of Defense. Who is he? He is a former officer of Ukraine's security services. He used to head the K department, which fought smuggling in Luhansk region, and he was quite successful in that role. In 2006, he gained prominence across Ukraine when he stopped an attempt to smuggle a large amount of money in dollars on the border with Russia. Everyone was positively surprised to see an officer of Ukraine's Security Council who was not corrupt, who rejected this money entirely despite being offered a big bribe. He was honored with a medal by Ukraine's then president Viktor Yushchenko. But later, as we heard from Pasechnik himself in interviews, that moment didn't allow him to grow in his career. His rivals started tempting him to take part in different corrupt schemes. He claimed that he rejected these offers, that he has his head screwed on and didn't want to damage his reputation. As a result, he was demoted to the local level in one of these cities in the Luhansk region, serving in Ukraine's security services there. So it looks like these unrealized ambitions pushed him to join the occupant's side and to head the LPR's state security ministry under the FSB control. So it looks like these unrealized ambitions pushed him to join the occupant's side and to head the LPR's state security ministry under the control of Russia's Federal Security Service. Another important thing to mention, in 2014, LPR's state security ministry wasn't even based in Luhansk. Its main function was to control the state border between Russia and the uncontrolled parts of the Luhansk region from Russia's side. Pasechnik, in his conversation with one of the security agents by the name of Fominov, admitted to dealing with security, but not the security of Luhansk, but the state security of the Russian Federation on the border of the uncontrolled part of Ukraine. So that means he's a person close to Russia. It means that he is directly controlled by Russia's Federal Security Service. His leadership are the Federal Security Service generals. That's why, in fact, he even has the power to remove Surkov's people from office, which is precisely what happened. There is a school of thought that the Kremlin isn't happy with Plotnitsky. Is that true? And if so, what exactly are they not happy about? First of all, the Kremlin wasn't pleased with anyone, be it Zakharchenko or Plotnitsky. Plotnitsky was more problematic for them because of his love of conflicts. There were constant murders, dismissals of so-called ministers, corruption and embezzlement scandals, scandals about the looting of humanitarian aid, scandals tied to the murders and unusual deaths of various warlords in Luhansk. Plotnitsky's inability to cement a part of occupied Donbass as his own, despite all his efforts, was the first and foremost thing that annoyed Russia. Additionally, Zakharchenko, as one of the separatists who is more well-known, was probably a better fit for this legend that the events in the Donbass are an attempt by the local people to have a structure different from Ukraine's nationalistic ideology. There were different people working on this image, like the writer Zahar Prilepin. Zakharchenko, unlike Plotnitsky, did a better job of making it look like things are calm and in control in Donetsk.